Hey everyone, it's the Libertarian Advisor, and today I wanted to talk about one of the memes that's been going around for a while. It's the one where it discusses, how great of a job Obama has done with, the stock market, the unemployment rate, the deficit, gasoline prices, etc. There's lots of these memes. I'm sure you guys have seen them around, but really it's too much to refute and post back to somebody because there's just so much going on there. So really what I want to do is kind of take this apart piece by piece. So the first part I want to take apart is the fact about Obama tripling the stock market. I mean, every economist is going to tell you that there's very little the president can do while they're actually in office to improve the economy, but there's a whole heck of a lot they can do to make things worse or to make things worse eventually down the road. I mean, it's true that Obama obviously inherited a complete train wreck from George Bush. And, first off, I just want to mention that I can't stand George Bush. I'm not some George Bush fanboy. I think he should probably be in jail if it were up to me. So this is not this is not coming from a place where, I'm only trying to, protect people on the right and only go after those on the left. But the fact of the matter is the left's in charge right now. The left's been in charge for the past 8 years, and obviously the media doesn't cover pretty much any of their malfeasance, and they do a great job covering the Republicans, as they should. But anyways, the first point I want to make is that it was actually Bill Clinton and all of his Goldman Sachs acolytes that are actually the ones who deregulated Wall Street. The name of that act was called the Glass-Steagall Act, and that actually is what separated the investment banking from retail banking. And it was Clinton and all of his Goldman Sachs cronies, like the Robert Rubins and Larry Summers and all of that, whole tree of evilness, that they're the ones who got rid of that. And that was in 1999. So it's not like, you get rid of this one day and then the next day, boom, crisis. But that's what set the tone for the ultimate crash that we had in 2008. And I won't even say that's the ultimate crash, because we did a lot of things to paper that over, and I think we still got some other things that have yet to come. But anyways, what has happened is, and why the market tripled, is you've got the Federal Reserve who printed over $4 trillion, the other central banks who printed trillions of dollars, and that money first goes to basically the richest people in the world. So the richest people in the world don't actually have to sell their stocks at a loss while you've got to, sell your house, or you've got to, consolidate, and you've got to, squeeze the belt straps. The richest people in the world get to borrow money at 0.25, 0.5%, sometimes even free, basically, and then buy up all those assets when they're distressed. Now, you don't have to be a genius to, look at the market when it's down to, at the 6,000 level on the Dow, 7,000 on the Dow. I think it was actually 6,600-ish. But anyways, you don't have to be a genius to then come in, and at that point, pretty much, a monkey throwing, darts could do a great job picking out stocks, because, when you get all that money for free, it's going to the richest people in the world. They're then consolidating the entire economy, and that's something that really the left should abhor, because I think that the term, left or progressive or liberal, it's, not really used in the proper context, and I actually get along great with a lot of people that are actual liberals. It's kind of this fake, authoritarian liberal that the media pushes is what I don't get along with. Kind of like the Hillary Clinton types. They're more authoritarians. And, I don't think there's anything liberal about her. There's nothing liberal about giving money to the richest people in the world, so then that way they can buy up the stock market and consolidate the entire industry. I mean, there's even a Berkeley professor, I know, ultra right-wing Berkeley professor Emmanuel Saez, that said 95% of all the gains have gone to the 1%. And I'm not someone that's against capitalism or against people making money, but I know that ultimately it's the 0.00001% that are the ones playing nations off against each other, like the George Soroses, that are actually, destroying things. I mean, could you even imagine the outcry there'd be if 95% of the gains underneath George Bush went to the 1%? I mean, we'd never hear the end of it. I mean, never hear the end of it. The other thing you've got going on is you've got the Bank of Japan is actually printing money out of thin air. Here, I'll make a little sound for you. Printing money out of thin air, and then using that money to then buy up the stock market. So they have, I think if you look at their version of the S&P 500, I think it's called the Nikkei 100. Japan, the Bank of Japan is the largest shareholder in almost all of those stocks, and at the rate they're going at, pretty soon they're going to be buying up the entire stock market. And I think there's a word for that, and it's called fascism. When you have the the state, or in this case, using Japan as the state, buying up the corporations. That's the state and corporate merger, which is known as fascism. I mean, the other thing that happens when you give away all this free money is you have corporations who are actually buying back their own shares. So what you have here is, and actually it gets a little bit worse. So they're actually, in many cases, they're actually issuing debt, then using that debt to then buy back their own shares. So I have illustrated an example here, and I'm going to have to read this, so just bear with me. So imagine company X has 1 million shares outstanding and earned $1 million of revenue. This would give company X an earnings per share of $1. Now imagine company X buys 300 shares of its stock, but its revenue has declined to $900,000. This would give a new earnings per share of $1.28. So in this case, company X is actually making less money, but all things being equal, they would actually have a higher stock price because now their earnings per share went up. So you're actually seeing companies with top line revenues coming down, but earnings per share going up because of some of these accounting gimmicks that are going on. And that's nothing to write home about or to take a victory lap on. And the real point of contention here is if things are so great, then why are interest rates stuck at 0.25%? Why are you only able to raise them once? So I know the interest rate is actually 0.5. It's a range, 0.25 to 0.5. So let's call it 0.5. If things are going great, you wouldn't have to do that. If things are going great, you could have a normal rate of, let's say, 3 or 4%. But you can't, because if you had a rate of 3 or 4%, the government would have to borrow at 5, and 5% of a debt that's almost 20 trillion is $1 trillion a year of interest. And at that point, it's game over, and no one's gonna be laughing at that point. So when Trump comes out and talks about how Hillary's being helped out by the Fed not raising rates, I think he's absolutely true, and this is what I think he really means by that. All right, the second claim I want to refute is that Obama ended 2 wars. Now, I don't even know where to start with this one. You've got a Nobel Peace Prize winning president who, although he did take troops out of Afghanistan, he largely replaced those with contractors. So yes, it's true that the troop count went down, but then you also had, a very large presence of contractors there. I think there's about 30,000 contractors there still. Now in in Iraq, you've actually seen most of the contractors go back, and a lot of troops, being taken home. And as a libertarian, I don't want any wars, but I think the worst thing to do is to leave all of our heavy artillery, all of our ammo, all of our weapons, at this base with these poorly trained Iraqi soldiers. So then that way, all the Wahhabists that we were funding first in Libya, then shipped them over to Turkey, through Turkey, went into Syria. They then went over to Iraq to go steal all those weapons. I think that's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. So now we've got this, it's kind of like a Machiavellian type system where, we wanted to get rid of Gaddafi. So, through any means, we were actually funding, guys with flying the Al-Qaeda flag in the Benghazi capital. And this is before, and I was pointing out this stuff even before, the whole, Benghazi, type incident, which there is a lot, to be said there, that is basically an illegal weapons transfer that was supposed to be going into, from Libya into Turkey, then into Syria, but then that all went awry. Now, that's not the point of this this broadcast. But the point of this broadcast is that Obama is no anti-war progressive liberal. He's a huge warmonger. He started wars in Libya. Then that wasn't enough for him. So after that became a failed state, he then had to go start another war in Syria, where the goal was to get rid of Assad at any means possible, even if that meant funding Al-Qaeda and then changing around the name to ISIS to then confuse everybody, and then even calling them the JV team, and now they actually are a big threat. So the claim that you've ended all the wars and are some peacenik is just absolutely ridiculous. The third claim I want to address is the fact that you've cut the uninsured rate in half. A lot of the ill effects of Obamacare we haven't even begun to even see yet. A lot of those are going to be in the next couple of years. I know personally I had a plan that only cost $70 a month when I graduated, bought it on the private market, had a deductible of $1,200. Now granted, now I'm married, but my premium's over $500 a month. So even if you factor in the effects of now there's 2 people versus 1, let's call it $250 a month, $250 a month is still a lot more than $70, and now my deductible is over $6,000 per person. And better yet, just found out that my silver plan isn't going to cover pregnancy, which is awesome when your wife is pregnant. So thank you, Obama. I really appreciate that. And the other fact I want to bring up is, you've got, maybe people have insurance, but now they can't afford to use it because in the past, people had, 20, 30, $40 deductibles. Well, now you've got a deductible that's, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. If you're like the average American that has, less than $1,000 in savings, according to a recent Market Watch article, then you're not going to be able to get preventative care. You're not going to be able to, afford to go into, get care. And I think the person that said it best was the chief architect of Obamacare, which is Jonathan Gruber, who, basically said if it wasn't for the ignorance of the American voter, this would have never been able to pass.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And, it's the second best argument. Look, I wish Mark was right. We can make that all transparent, but I'd rather have this law than not. So it's kind of like his reporter story.
And this is over a lot of people's heads, but when you're paying for insurance and it's coming out of your payrolls, that's actually pre-tax. But now through Obamacare, it's not going to be coming from your employer. It's going to be coming more and more, from you. So it's a secret tax. And then there's several videos of Jonathan Gruber actually, bragging about this. But, when you've got somebody like me that can see right through it, it's just, really, despicable what they're doing to the population that they know is not financially literate to understand what they're doing. I then want to discuss, how Obama brought the price of gas down. I mean, I think everything that has been done to bring the price of gas down, has probably been attributed, is it Obama that's opening up coal mines? Is it Obama that's, trying to get offshore drilling going? He's been stifling all of this. You've got, all these technologies that were supported by Republicans that now Occupy Democrats is trying to take, a victory lap on. The other thing you had happen is you had a lot of people falsely believe that the U.S. was going to start raising rates, in late 2014. The Fed gave such a rosy outlook on things that everyone thought that the Fed funds rate was going to be probably 3 or 4% by now. Well, that never materialized, but what did materialize is the dollar soaring. So the dollar went up, I think it was like 40% against most basket of currencies. So, if that wasn't the case, probably the price of oil would probably be 40% higher because it takes, when the value of the dollar goes up and now it takes less of those dollars to buy goods. So, I think that's one other issue you've got going on, but a lot of that is predicated on fraud. Now, the next point is going to be about how he cut the Bush deficit down by 2/3, and I do have another video on this that I can reference, so I'm not going to rehash that whole thing. But the main thing to keep in mind with that is that if you have to produce $10 of debt to get $1 GDP, well then what good is that doing? So you're seeing the debt going up like this, whereas the GDP is not even able to match that, and we're bringing in record tax receipts. I think we have more than 5, 6, 7, 800,000 or $1 billion more than what Bush brought in, but yet we still have a deficit. So if you had the same amount of expenditures that Bush had, and then you had the same amount of revenues that we have currently, we'd have a massive surplus of probably about $500 billion-ish in that neighborhood, but instead we've got a deficit of about $500 billion. So awesome job. Now, if we can't get a surplus in these types of conditions, 8 years into a recovery, then when are we going to expect to get that? I mean, the last point I want to address is that, Obama got Osama. I mean, there's almost so many slips in there, Freudian slips that you could give in that one. But I mean, you've got Nobel, Pulitzer Prize winning winners such as Cy Hirsch coming out and saying that that's pretty much a fable. You got guys like Dr. Steve Pieczenik, who the Tom Clancy books were based off of him. He is Jack Ryan. So I mean, you've got all these different people that are coming out and saying that he was already dead. But even if he wasn't, I think that the SEAL team really went in there. I think they really did kill some people. But, it's interesting that, they were all blown up the next month in a helicopter accident in Afghanistan. I mean, that's on record. You can go and Google, check that out. But even if all that's true, I mean, we've had, trillions of dollars of our treasure spent. We've had, thousands of, people lost in 9/11, thousands of people lost fighting the wars to ultimately try to get Osama. Sorry, I almost said Obama, but you had, thousands of people trying to, win this war to, maybe make America great again. And so after spending all this money, after losing all these lives, we go and we get the guy, and then we go and dump him in the ocean immediately. I mean, that just seems kind of crazy to me. But anyways, again, was it your tactics that led to him getting captured? Were you the one in there? Were you the one, wargaming things out, exactly what they should do? No, stop trying to take credit for what, our brave soldiers did, whether or not, the official story is true or not. I mean, I'm usually defaulting to the fact that whatever the government tells me is not going to be true. But, that's just some of the, memes, that's just some of the, rebuttals that I have to give for that meme. Again, it took me 15 minutes to do this. And every time I see one of my friends, post that, it just absolutely drives me nuts. And now I've got a video that I can show them, and maybe now you've got a video that you can show them too. Thank you for watching. If you like this, please like my page, and I appreciate it. Take care. Bye.